And by the way, before we even get to 1947, let's not forget another chapter in Muslim Jewish history. And this one, I was honestly surprised when I found out. Under Nazi rule, when you're all aware what Hitler did, he made a policy, all the people of that background shall be exterminated. The most inhumane, barbaric policy in the entire history against the Jewish people was Hitler. He literally exterminated them by, gas chambers and whatnot. Guess who intervened where possible? In multiple countries, Muslims, sometimes at risk to their own lives, stood up and protected Jewish people. And wallahi, brothers and sisters, I say to you honestly, I have visited Auschwitz and Dachau. I have studied this chapter in history. Wallahi, I swear to you, if I were alive at that point in time, I would hope to Allah that I have the courage and bravery to stand up against the tyranny of Hitler and to protect innocent women and children. The way they were brutalized, the way they were rounded up and just killed for no reason. Innocent babies, we saw thousands of toys and thousands of shoes of children literally just piled up there, killed for no reason. I would hope I would have that courage as well. And I was so happy to hear so many people stood up. The Sultan of Morocco, interestingly, Morocco was under the French rule, and so technically it was not independent. Yet when the French said, give us your Jewish people, Sultan Muhammad V said, no way, these people are our brethren, they have lived with us for centuries, they shall not be handed over. So Sultan Muhammad refused to obey the Nazi policies under the French rule of the Nazis. Tunisia as well refused. The Ottomans refused. In Bosnia, the Muslims refused. And perhaps the most brave act of courage, because it wasn't a government, it was brave, in France, the Muslims who were under the Nazi occupation. So the Nazis, if you remember your history, they invaded France and they took it over. So you have Nazi rule in France for a few years. You literally had Nazis ruling France before the liberation in 1947. So Nazis are in control. Muslims were allowed to live as second-class citizens. The Imam of the Masjid, Abul Qadir, the Imam of the Masjid, the Grand Mosque of Paris, I visited it. It's a very beautiful masjid built in the 1930s. It's still standing to this day. It's a beautiful, iconic masjid in Europe. The Imam of the Masjid gave a secret talk to the Muslims, and he encouraged the Muslims, if you know any Jewish friends of yours, bring them in. We will protect them in our mosque. The basement of the masjid became a home for the Jews under Nazi rule in France. And this was engineered by the Imam, the Shaykh. And some people didn't have space. He forged Islamic documents and told them to dress like Muslims. And it is said he saved over 1,000 people by this policy. 1,000 Jewish people in France were saved by the Muslim community, who literally banded together. They didn't tell any secrets. There were families in the basement of the masjid, and those that didn't have space, the Imam personally forged IDs that these are Muslims. Because in the end of the day, what do the Nazis know? They look different, they talk different, they dress different. Khalas, they pretend to be Muslims. This is what you call Islamic rule. This is what is akhlaq of the Muslim. When this tyrant comes, you're not going to allow him to do this. You will protect them. And so it is truly sad that all of this history has been completely forgotten. What happened? Obviously you're aware, in 1947, it is estimated there were around less than 1 million Jewish people living in Arab and Muslim lands. Less than maybe 900,000. That's a huge number, by the way, especially after World War II. After World War II, you had more Jewish people across the Middle East and Arab lands than anywhere in Europe, right? So almost 1 million living in Yemen, in Cairo, in Iran, in Morocco. These are all people of Jewish background. What happens in 1947? The country of Israel is formed, and they make a call, a plea, that if you come here, you will be given perks and land. If you come here, you will be given a better economic status. And so majority of them migrated. Why did they migrate? Put yourself in their shoes. It's their land from their perspective, obviously. They're getting their own people. They're getting a citizenship. They're getting land. They feel it's going to be safer for them. Some of them believe in Zionism. And yes, I'm not going to deny, because of the atrocities in 1947 and the massacres against Arabs, it is true, in a number of Muslim lands, for the first time in history, these types of sentiments that we now are familiar with began to develop against the Jewish population. I'm not going to deny this. But why did it happen? Because of politics of Israel. Not because they were Jews, because Israel massacred thousands, hundreds of thousands of Muslims, expelled hundreds of thousands of Arabs. Well then, there's going to be a feeling of sentiment. Why are you guys doing here? Go where you belong and whatnot. So all of this put together in the next 5 to 10 years, from 900,000 Jews in Arab and Muslim lands, currently it is estimated there are less than 15,000 across all lands. 200 here, 500 here, all of them have come to Israel. But one final point, and with this we conclude. Subhanallah, this is something you need to know, O Muslims. This division of living under Muslim, living under Christian, it had and has and continues to have a profound impact on the demographics of the country of Israel. Judaism is divided into multiple groups. The three most important groups: number one, Ashkenazi; number two, Sephardim; number three, Mizrahi. These three divisions go back to whether they were living under Europe or under Muslim rule. And the most Europeanized Jewish people are the Ashkenazis. These are the ones, they never lived under Muslim lands. These are the ones, they have a different cultural background. They're more European. Generally, they're more secular. Generally, they're the ones in charge. Generally, they're socioeconomically privileged, and they're the governments ever since the founding of Israel. Sephardim are those Jewish people that were kicked out of Andalusia. And Mizrahi are the Jewish people who lived in Arab lands, Yemen, Iran, other places for many millennia. They are the smallest. Generally, Sephardim and Mizrahi are more pious. They're more orthodox. They're more religious. They're more believing in God. And a lot of you don't know this. In Israel, they are treated like second-class citizens. In Israel, because they can tell by your looks, they can tell by your name, they can tell by your culture. The Ashkenazis, who have a white skin color, are the superior class. And of course, there's even a lower category, the Falasha, which are coming from Ethiopia, and you should see how they are treated in Israel. They are the lowest of the low. But above them are the Mizrahis, and above them are the Sephardim. Sephardim and Mizrahis, they are ghettoized in Israel. In the 40s and 50s, they were not given the land they were promised. They were not given the perks that the Ashkenazis were given to. They were not given government positions. And this caused, I'm not joking, you can look this up, in the 60s and 70s, political parties, some of them semi-violent, from the Sephardim, from the Mizrahi, were formed to fight against whom? Against whom? The Arabs? No, Ashkenazis. To fight for their rights. And these days there is a massive party in Israel called the Shas Party, S-H-A-A-S, the Shas Party. It is the fourth or the fifth largest party. It is a party that was founded to protect the rights of the Arab Jews, i.e. the Sephardim and the Mizrahi Jews, so that they have equal rights as the Ashkenazis. You have to realize racism is rampant in that group of people, even amongst their own. Any Jewish person who lived in Muslim lands, who spoke Arabic, who comes from an Arabic culture, is not treated with the same respect as the Europeans. And this is well known, open secret. Go look it up, go do your research in this regard. So this is one point, and I want to conclude on this point, sisters and brothers, and that is that we are not mentioning this. Wallahi, we are not mentioning this to remind them of a debt they owe us. No. We did this because Allah told us to do it, not because of them. We did this because our Prophet ﷺ taught us this is how we treat minorities. We would do it all over again. But we just want to show the world this is Islamic law. This is Islamic Sharia. The freedoms that they had, the intellectual, curiosities, the books that they produced, they couldn't produce a fraction of them in Europe in medieval times. And that is what we give to the world. It is truly sad. And we don't say this as a debt or a favor. We're just pointing out the facts. It is truly sad that the same descendants of those whom we saved, those who were given refuge with us, they have flipped the script and they are doing what Hitler did to them, they are doing to the very people who protected them. And we just say this as a historical fact and record, otherwise we complain to Allah and Allah alone. These are facts we should all know, and we are proud as Muslims of our history, and we're proud of our Sharia, and there's nothing to be ashamed of. Alhamdulillah, thumma alhamdulillah.